Assemblywoman Glick, thanks very much for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Liz.
There have now been many iterations of this whole issue with SUNY redevelopment. Now we are into SUNY 2020, right? The governor seemed to come out and express support for a 5-year tuition plan that the chancellor is pushing. And he also has created this sort of competitive grant procedure for 4 research institutions to participate in. Your position has not necessarily changed in terms of your concern about tuition. Is that right?
That's correct. I think that certainly differential, paying a different amount for undergraduate coursework at one campus versus another, I think is a bad idea. I think it will necessarily make students who are very price sensitive change their interests and desires for careers that might be to the detriment of New Yorkers.
But would you say that the idea of giving students some knowledge and ability to prepare over 5 years is a bad thing? In other words, so they know that every year tuition is going to go up $500 or whatever it is, whatever that number is. So that is what the chancellor is pushing now. Before you even start talking about certain institutions being able to set their own tuition, the idea that a system-wide 5-year plan.
Well, we've had that discussion for a couple of years in the legislature, and the major sticking point has been whether or not the institutions would actually get the tuition increase, be able to keep it, and whether or not the state would make the commitment not to withdraw a similar or equivalent amount out the back door, which has happened in past tuition increases, so that the university system, both CUNY and SUNY, have felt the same increases in tuition without really gaining any ground in terms of their finances. And we have, in our discussions with the governor and his people, said that we need some public assurance. We could put anything into statute, which is the Peoples-Stokes-Seward bill, which is the 5-year 5.5%
right,
with a lockbox and a maintenance of effort.
Right.
And any executive, this governor or another governor, can simply notwithstand Section 202 of the laws of whatever and eliminate the maintenance of effort.
So the governor has so far not been willing, or the governor's people has not been willing to?
There has not been. Have you heard a public statement that there would be, as to the best extent possible, the maintenance of the state support with the tuition increase? No. That is a very big issue for the legislature. We have had, 2 years ago, there was a $620 increase in tuition.
Yeah.
If the current value of that was residing with the universities, the chancellor, I don't think, would be here saying they need more. Of course, they may always be asking for more, but I think that the reality would be that they would have substantial improvement in their finances.
Now, how much of this is actually really about control, do you think? I mean, you have made some comments in Buffalo News saying, well, we would like a say, we being the legislature, and the SUNY system, specifically UB, I think, Buffalo in particular, because they started this whole thing with UB 2020, are saying, well, we want to do what we want. We want to have more independence and more autonomy. So how much of this is really just about control?
Well, I think, when you have human beings, there probably is always a little bit of a push and pull. I think that there is a responsibility, I believe there is a responsibility for the legislature to oversee what happens with state assets. The initial UB 2020, in my humble opinion, was simply an attempt to take University of Buffalo private, but continue state support. And it obligated the state, incidentally, to keep pace with whatever the tuition that was set by UB in relation to the tuition assistance program. So it wasn't like, fine, we don't want, we don't need anything else from the state. It's like, we want all of the assets going forward. We want more money coming in, and you can't give anybody more than you give us.
Okay.
That was problematic. Now we've moved to a place where these challenge grants for specific projects that have an academic nexus is a good step forward. The part that's troublesome is using any of the tuition dollars in some way to make up for the capital that is a shortfall.
Well, and
that's problematic.
And that, I mean, first of all, UB 2020, under its new president, has scaled back because
Yes.
recognizing a certain reality, I think, because there
Yes.
just is a reality that the legislature was not going to sign off on the entire plan. Now they're talking about a scaled back procedure where they would just move the medical school. That would be the first thing they do downtown. I think everyone in Buffalo feels like the downtown of Buffalo in general, needs an economic shot in the arm. This is something that many executives, many administrations have been trying to do for years. The problem is, of course, the legislature needs to sign off on the public-private partnership piece and also on the tuition piece that you just mentioned, because they want some of the funds from a tuition increase to leverage and subsequently use that for development. It sounds to me like you guys aren't going to go for that.
Well, we haven't seen the actual plan yet, and to what extent they are going to commit, what investment is made through a private-public partnership, what is actually part of a capital campaign. There are pieces. I'm interested in seeing what's presented and not prejudging it. It is concerning if most of it is capital, ancillary capital, that it'll be backed by some, are they tuition-backed bonds? That's troublesome. This legislature, and the Assembly in particular, has supported many, many economic development projects for Buffalo. And right now, they have not used up the capital that was appropriated, I think it was in 2 years ago, in the fiscal year 2 years ago, for the biomedical corridor. There still are several, maybe tens of millions of dollars still available. So I want to see what that plan is, and I absolutely support the redevelopment of part of the downtown of Buffalo, just as I would support projects at Geneseo or projects at New Paltz or Purchase. So but I do think there is an obligation to ensure that the assets that have been paid for by state taxpayers are reviewed and not simply determined locally.
You, of course, are the higher education chair, and I want to just touch on two other issues here. One specific issue that deals with higher education. It's CUNY, which is actually the downstate system. There is a fight right now, and it has to do with a CUNY trustee named Jeff Wiesenfeld. And the fight is over John Jay giving an honorary degree to a pretty celebrated playwright, Tony Kushner.
Pulitzer Prize winning.
Yes, very well known. Angels in America is what most people know him for. Originally, John Jay was going to give an award. The board said no, and there was a big fight, and in part because Jeff Wiesenfeld felt that Tony Kushner had said things that were anti-Israel. Now the board has reconsidered, but there is a fight to get rid of Jeff Wiesenfeld. It's all about this issue of freedom of expression, which is tantamount and key to higher academics, is it not?
Academic freedom has been challenged, in every generation. And I think that on the one hand, conservatives rail against political correctness unless they are the ones who are determining what that political correctness is. And this would be one of those instances. This isn't the first time that this trustee has stepped over a boundary that I think is inappropriate. I think that half of this fight, although he hasn't said it, he said it's about Israel. The fact that Tony Kushner is openly gay, I think, is an aspect that has not been discussed. It angers me. And I think that nobody challenging the trustee at the meeting was disappointing and reflects perhaps the need for new blood on the board.
But would you ask him to resign at this point?
I haven't issued a statement asking him to resign. I certainly would be gravely disappointed if he was reappointed at the end of his term, which I think runs into 2013.
Yeah, right, it does. And just also in closing, you are one of the few openly gay members of the legislature. There's not too many, actually. No. And you've been around long enough to see the development of the gay marriage battle. And yesterday, one of your colleagues, Assemblyman Danny O'Donnell, also openly gay, introduced the gay marriage bill, reintroduced it, because we haven't seen a bill from the governor. Do you support this reintroduction, first of all, and are you disappointed in the way that the administration has been handling this, in so much as there is no bill at this point from the governor?
Well, I think that, what has always been our goal would be to have a program bill. We got one from Eliot Spitzer, we got one from David Patterson, where well into this session there have been numerous meetings with the governor and other people from various organizations, from people who are perhaps not even that familiar with Albany politics, and yet no bill. And here we are with 5 weeks to go in the session. I think that Danny took a responsible position that says we need to actually have a bill in order to focus people's attention and say the issue is not just an issue for discussion, but a bill to be addressed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Assemblywoman.
So
I
thank
really
you. I
appreciate
appreciate
your
it,
time.
Liz.